little bit about this. How did you get in touch with our association that
Well, it
organizes?
was a friend of mine, a Hungarian woman I know in London, she's a photographer and a blogger. She helps a lot of photographers. They multitask, they help roller the walls, and they get involved, and it's part, everybody's part of the scene. Now, she mentioned the festival here in Ander in about February or January, and then it kind of went kind of off the radar, but it came back on a good few weeks ago. But I was very keen to come to Romania because, one, I'd never been to the Eastern European.
This is your
part.
first time here?
Yeah, in this area completely. And I think a lot of people want to be invited to kind of Los Angeles, and they all want to be cool. But it's really important that, you know, some of the areas in England and everywhere that don't get a lot of graffiti or street art, you know, it's good as well to come out, and I think these gigs are quite hard because living in London, there's a lot of people on the scene, and there's, I mean, within one street art tour there might be 15 a day, and in each group there might be 15 to 30 people, so you get that sheer amount of kind of people. And as artists, there's the ego involved. So it's kind of hard, you know, when you work in places, you're not really getting any feedback. And sometimes artists, it can be quite difficult. And then you've got the different cultural elements and the web. So it can be really tough. You know, you've got painting in your studio with oil paint and then painting out in the elements in different cities and different countries. And it can be really hard, and I'm being polite there, I won't swear. It can be a really tough gig. I find it kind of quite tough sometimes. So yeah, you almost feel like a sports person sometimes, you know, where it's more about the mentality rather than the muscles. And that's what I feel at the minute. I'm at a stage where I'm just kind of, I haven't had much sleep, and I'm struggling. So it's, but yeah, you just got to fight through. You come away from each painting festival and gig, and you feel proud that you've pushed through. So sometimes it's about perseverance rather than art, if that makes sense.
Do you plan to paint all the wall?
No, I'm just going to paint a little bit further than is blocked out. My design goes to about halfway here, but I will probably do one more panel.
Oh.
I mean, this dimensions is very difficult as well.
How much did you work on these?
Just since yesterday afternoon.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and I'll carry on working till Sunday evening. But this dimension, this very elongated landscape, it is quite difficult for figurative artists because the natural dimensions is portrait. So to try and adapt the dimensions to the human form is, I find, quite difficult.
And how do you manage, for example, to imagine with all these, I don't know how to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean, the posts. And
yes, the structures.
With great difficulty, yeah. It's hard. I mean, once you get working, you kind of forget that you're actually working on a 3D surface.
Exactly.
And another guy, a graffiti artist from London, came earlier, and he was like, wow, you know, there's quite a few obstacles that, so it's difficult, yeah, because they are actually quite extreme. Yeah, you've just got to go with it, really. It's a tough one, the dimensions and the surface going in and out, so yeah. And
how about the visit in Arad? How do you find it until now? Everything okay?
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, with these events, sometimes it's quite hard to get much of a flavour of the place because you come off the plane or the train, and there's a lot of detail in my work. So
do you tend to go to the festival at Deba or just stay here?
I tend to spend the time here. You know, it's like this all the time. You never really get a chance to chat to the other artists or do much tourism stuff. On Monday it would be nice to go around Arad, and I've already seen some of the architecture. So. But it would be nice to be a bit more of a tourist.
Where did you come from?
On Monday. I'm from England. North London.
North?
in North London. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, man.
We were talking about the visit.
And people coming by.
Have you interacted with people on the street
A little bit, because of the language. A lot of the younger people.
Are they curious about what you do here?
Yeah, people are, but because of the language barrier, it's hard because you want to push on, but at the same time, it's part of why you're here, to interact with people, and it's about being inclusive with everybody and stuff. So, but a lot of the older people that seem to be stopping the language barrier a bit, but you can normally pick up if people don't like it or will like it. So.
And what do you think? Are they impressed or just wondering what are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, when it's at the stage where, because I work in a very kind of abstract way for figurative artists.
Yes.
There's a certain point where people, what the is he kind of doing? So sometimes people come along and they look a bit confused. People who know my work kind of understand. So yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, once the faces are pinned in, then it kind of starts.
Making
it's like
sense.
an anchor.
Yes.
It kind of anchors. Because my piece is always made up of very detailed bits and then some abstract bits, but you need the focal points to anchor the rest of the composition. So until we're in it can be quite hard for people to work out what on earth is going on. So
how important do you think street art is to bring back to life a deserted place, a ruined place, for example?
I don't know. Obviously, I'm a bit biased. It's always, it's always good. Yeah, it's a tricky question because I think there's a lot of planned work out. There's a lot of work out there that is very noisy. And I like your very traditional trams, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of bland street art stuff around, but in general, it's better than kind of grey concrete walls. So it's always a good thing, really. It's there's good and bad and everything.
Do you still get from somebody the opinion that this is vandalism, for example? Or this has passed already?
So, I mean, to be honest with my stuff, because people can relate to it once they can see the detail and the technical side, even especially the older generation, where they can be a bit kind of like, what on earth is he doing? You kind of win
You're a
them
bit
over.
conservative.
Yeah, there can be. It's about changing people's mentality and attitude. But sometimes when people start to see the passion and the emotion in the figures, they kind of forget that conservative, and they say, "Oh, that's quite interesting." So it's nice to see when you break through that barrier with people. But not all work does that. Some people, it leaves them a bit cold and they kind of think, what on earth is this about? But with my stuff, because it's figurative, it communicates with people. And because of that feeling, as human beings, even if people don't really want it on the wall, they can't help kind of connect with it and go, oh gosh, and it kind of, if the work is right, it does kind of touch something, even if they don't like it. So it's interesting to get to that point. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. What about the EU? Are we going to do something on that?
If you wish to say, we are interested about your opinion.
Like I said earlier, it's. I think there was a lot of people who.
What's the reaction back home and your friends?
It's difficult to tell because originally, I get a lot of information off social media, mainly Facebook, not Instagram, because it's very image-based. But originally, what I call my friends and family page was originally for my art. Whereas now it's a mix of people I meet in real life and friends, and then there's always other thousands of people that I'm never going to meet. But what I do is I try, to be blunt, eliminate people whose politics I don't really want to hear about. And I think a lot of people are like that. So a lot of people on my page are of a similar persuasion to me. They're kind of they see, they want the world to be a bit more inclusive, and the world is getting smaller, so it doesn't make any sense to start
separating
and making higher walls. As a human being, it doesn't really make sense. So I think my general feeling, going off social media, that it wasn't going to happen. The referendum, you know, wasn't going to be a negative. So I just woke up this morning and saw on social media that by a small minority that we will be leaving the EU, and it's a real shock. It's a big shock, because all people of my political persuasion didn't think it was going to happen. And but really, I mean, it will take a good few years for the change to come into place. But I think what's upset me is the attitudes of people. There seems to be a lot of kind of reactionary, you know, barriers coming up, and it's quite upsetting to see that coming into effect. So even though long-term effects we won't see for a while, just knowing that those attitudes are out there and people are becoming, those nationalist attitudes are coming back, it's quite depressing, really. In a time where we should all be kind of helping each other.
Interconnecting, yes.
Yeah, and it just seems quite troubling to me that...
Do you think through art people really, the art community is...
I'd like to think in general, the arts in general,
people.
Yeah, that people are more... Yeah, I think per se people tend to be a bit more libertarian or a bit left-wing or socialist ideas. Yeah, I think so. And that's why I think a lot of people are quite disappointed. I know one of the artists from England I was chatting with over breakfast that he was as disappointed as I was. Yeah, so it's a bit of a shock for us. Yeah.